All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you may be. Thank you for joining us. Another episode of Catching Up with Jacob. And here he is, this time on the West Coast. Jacob Prash, how are you?
Blessings in Jesus. Looking forward to his coming.
Amen. Praise the Lord. Thank you for being with us, Jacob. And David Lister, I'm not sure where you are, but you're not on the West Coast.
Well, maybe the in Philippines and heading home on Monday. So it's a long trip. So please pray for safety and good connections.
Very good. Thanks, David. Thanks for being with us early in the day, the next day, Saturday. So
Great.
very good. Jay, you used to be on the West Coast, but you're not. You're sort of in the middle, and it's not a coast, but you're here. How are you?
The Gulf Coast.
Are you
Yeah,
by the
Live
Gulf
on the
Coast?
Gulf Coast.
Gulf
In
Coast America.
yeah, the bustling, riotous Houston, Texas, and I fly back to the quiet, peaceful, sleepy town of Los Angeles next week.
Oh, you go from one boiling pot to another. Very good. That's good.
Very good to
We
put
want to
it.
welcome those who are watching us. Davey, just wanted to say hi. You don't have to come on the camera if you don't want. I know you can see you on the audio, but Davey's with us today from Australia, and God bless you, Davey. Thanks for being with us. And we also want to welcome those who are watching live and those who will watch later. We have a packed day of information. We want to give that to you on catching up. But we also had a special report from Israel that will be on YouTube after this. We'll be finding on all the other platforms as well. We just filmed it with Elon from Israel, Moriel Administrator in Israel. So you'll want to stay tuned for that. We did one last week. He's back again this week. So praise the Lord for that. And he's okay. So many of you guys were praying for him, praying for the believers. So he's got a good update for us after catching up with Jacob. So make sure you stay tuned for that and keep an eye on when it drops. In the meantime, Jay, you want to tell us a little bit about Moriel Chapel and X and all the wonderful platforms that we're in and what we're growing on podcast?
Absolutely. If you want to see the latest Bible studies, whether they be Sandy's, whether they be Marco's or Jacob's, make sure to visit Moriel Chapel. Make sure to subscribe. Also, you can get all of the Moriel content on our X or our Twitter account, which is Moriel TV. And finally, if you want to watch the podcast, all of the material is available to be downloaded so you can listen to them when you're offline. And it's a great way to have these lessons for later and maybe in the future when the internet's not there. That'd be a great thing. So please, while you can, make sure to get as much of this material as you can.
On Moriel Chapel, Jay, can you just remind us we're basically putting biblical materials on that channel. Everything else goes in the other channel. So Bible studies and things like that go to the Moriel
Sure.
Chapel one.
Yeah, so all the Bible studies and all the past studies are going on Moriel Chapel on YouTube. Moriel TV, we're going to stick to kind of news, current events, and prophecy. That's kind of where we're at with Moriel TV. And then, of course, uh, you get all of that on podcasts.
All of it on podcast. And remind everyone, Jay, what are they supposed to do when they watch anything on YouTube or Rumble, especially YouTube? We want to beat the algorithm. What do they got to do?
So you will definitely hit the like button. You would definitely hit the subscribe button. And then my next one would be share. It's a great little button that allows you to send our material to your family and your friends just so you have something to discuss around the Thanksgiving table.
Oh, Thanksgiving will be here in no time. We're already halfway through, almost halfway through the year. Jacob Prash, quick announcement. You are here on the West Coast, but you're also going to be on the East Coast pretty soon. You're working on the film, working on the movie, but people want to know how you are doing health-wise. So give us a quick thumbnail on your health, East Coast, the movie, and eventually you heading back to the UK.
Yes, well, thankfully, the infections from the cellulitis are under control by antibiotics. That was very effective. It was a battle, but the Lord was gracious, and I had some great Christian physicians who were friends of mine, both in the Far East and here in California. So that's okay. The problem is just with the edema in my legs and mobility. It's an ongoing battle, and it's not easy. So your prayers are much appreciated. The cellulitis, though, is what can become potentially even life-threatening, and that is under control. Thank the good Lord. We will be having meetings in New York City and Baltimore at the Church of the Open Door in both cities on my way back to Great Britain. And we are preparing for our conferences in Britain, in Scotland, and in England, which will be in October and November. I'm also speaking in England near Swindon, and we are having a conference in Switzerland as well. Those things will be posted as soon as possible on the itinerary page on the Moriel website, moriel.org. I'd also remind people that we are available outside of YouTube on other platforms, including our own servers, Moriel.tv and MorielTV.org. So we can't be closed down by anybody at the present time. They can't completely put us out of business. But echoing what James said, if you're on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up, please subscribe, and please share with friends, other believers. We would much appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Jacob. And of course, with all the misinformation, disinformation, censorship, and they're very good at that. You could beat it. You could beat it by sharing it, subscribing it, and of course,
Correct.
thumbs up, because the algorithm picks up those shares and those thumbs up and those subscriptions, and it says, "Oh, this is something people ought to watch," and it pushes it out to people that may not be subscribers, that are interested in the same topic. And we like to everybody know there's so much misinformation, and appreciate Jacob, especially with Elon and information we have close to the epicenter there in Israel, that we bring out information what's really going on, and that keeps a lot of false things away.
Yep.
So if you want the truth in people's hearts and minds, you could do that, and that helps a lot, and to get
Yep.
the truth into people's television screens.
There's something to be said, Marco, for not imitating the world, but being innocent as a dove, wise as a serpent. We see how, for instance, the present administration in Washington, Mr. Trump, he is able to outmanipulate mainstream media, legacy media, get around CNN, MSNBC, the networks, BBC, and other such misrepresentatives of truth through the tactical use or even strategic use of social media, alternative platforms where social media will manage and editorialize news. They'll spin everything ideologically in their direction. There'll always be dual standards, and they will always withhold reporting things that don't fit their narrative. We need to beat that. Now, Donald Trump has shown us how to do that. Whether you like him or not, Mr. Musk has shown us how to do that. It can be done. We have to learn how to do this for ourselves. Innocent as a dove, but wise as a serpent. Jesus told us to do that. Prayer is, of course, the main thing, but we have to use our God-given common sense.
Yeah, and so if you want to watch some of that, you can watch us on YouTube, on Rumble. If you want to ask questions to Jake, especially today on Backstage, go to Rumble, ask those questions. We will get those answers to you. And but there's also X, there's also Telegram, there's also
Yes.
Vimeo, there's also our own website, Memorial.tv,
Yes.
memorialtv.org, RTN. There's quite a bit, and then there's the podcast. So there's quite a bit of things that we have diversified in a godly way, so people can always get a hold of the truth. So we appreciate you watching us. One more thing, and somebody reminded me to say this: on July 11th through the 13th, I'm going to be in Fresno, California, at a small gathering of believers in Fresno, California. Israel, the Church, and the Jews is the topic that they chose. So we will be talking about those. So if you're in Fresno, California, email the church. ccodtruth.org is the website. devortruth@gmail.com is the email. And for more information, something will come out soon, and we'll be relaying that information. So it's coming up. People are interested. People are definitely interested in what's going on in the world today. And at least it gives us a chance to share the gospel and prophecy and what's going on in the world today. So very good. Jacob Prash, we got to catch up.
That's
Israel and the Iranian regime, over the past 7 days, Israel has initiated the airstrikes in Tehran. I mean, Tehran's been hit pretty hard. Military targets have been hit pretty hard. Ballistic missile targets have been hit pretty hard. Top commanders have been removed. The Khomeini, Ayatollah Khomeini, is now on the radar, not only by Israel, but Trump saying that we know where you are. We're not going to kill you yet, but we know where you are. And Israel has fired off very precise targets, and they've been very successful at it, albeit they've been hit pretty hard as well. Well, let's start there. The latest 7 days into this war.
Khomeini remains in religious and ideological control and political control. That's true. The problem is Iran does not have at present a coordinated military command. The Israelis keep killing them. It's hard to say who knows who's really calling the shots. It reminds me of the Biden administration. Who knows who's really making the decisions? You've got an 86-year-old, demonized despot who's never had a military background. And the people who did have the most senior military backgrounds have been eliminated. Soleimani by the Americans, and then all the others by the Israelis. Who is in control? When you don't have a good centralized, coordinated command and control system, that is one to your advantage, because the enemy is not coordinated in their capacity to attack you or respond. But secondly, it's to your disadvantage, because they can be so haphazard that they can do anything in desperation, perhaps not even knowing what they're doing. For instance, they took out a mosque in Haifa. They took out a mosque. The Iranians took out a mosque in Haifa, Israel. It's just because they're so crazy. They can hit a hospital because they're so crazy. They can hit a kindergarten because they're so crazy. So the vacuum of leadership on the military axis of leadership is both good and it is bad. It makes the situation advantageous, but also very precarious.
Yeah, so these are shockwaves across the region. David Lister, yeah, your thoughts on 7 days in?
Well, it's been pretty devastating, of course, on Iran. They've been pounded. Israel has air superiority to go anywhere in Iran right now. But the great concern is what Netanyahu says, that Iran still has 28,000 ballistic missiles, which their concern is going to overwhelm their Iron Dome. And so we need to pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and hopefully can get a ceasefire here with Iran or something. Or Israel needs to be resupplied with missiles. I know they're real low and they're asking Trump for more missiles. So it's a tough situation. I know we're having censored information coming out of Israel on the strikes and everything. And so that's actually happening at the hospital there, hitting a cancer ward. But fortunately, Israel was smart enough to remove the patients out of that hospital and have them in the basement, so nobody was killed there. So it's ongoing. Got to pray, because it's becoming dangerous every day, and further we get into this. So
That's right. Jake, I'm going to go back to you. The heavy strikes on the nuclear program. So you got Natanz, you have Fordo, and then you also have Iraq. Especially Iraq was hit pretty hard this week. Nothing seems to indicate that they have completely destroyed the nuclear program. They're still asking Trump for the bunker busting bombs, but at least for the most part, we know that they've been heavily damaged. Heavily damaged. At least the reports by
Yeah.
the UN. Do you think this is the end of the nuclear program? Are we still seeing more things that need to happen in order for that to be completely gone? Or what do you think?
Okay, the uranium enrichment is about 80%. That is very close to having weapons grade fissionable material. Very, very close, on the precipice. They could make maybe one small bomb, two small bombs very quickly, and a handful, estimates range from 9 to 15 within a matter of weeks. So they were getting very, very close, much closer than they were in March, much closer than they were when Mr. Trump came to the White House. They've stepped it up. When you have this toothless denuclearization programs of Obama and Biden, which were toothless and which did not have guaranteed inspections that the Iranians couldn't control, and giving them hundreds of billions of dollars in unfrozen assets at the same time. Let's make it clear. This nuclear threat was made possible by Barack Obama and by Joseph Biden. They made this possible. The Israelis were right to move when they did. When you reach an 80% capacity with the centrifuges and uranium enrichment, it's too dangerous to wait any further. That move had to be made when it was made. I do not question that for 1 second. It's more precarious than it was even 2 months ago, 3 months ago. That is the reality. Thank God that Harris is not the president of the United States. That terrible, incompetent woman, like Biden, like her senile former boss, and Barack Obama would have done everything she possibly could to make sure the Iranians would live to fight another day and renew their nuclear weapons development. And that's certainly what it is. They also would have made sure Hamas was able to survive to fight another day. Thank God that Harris did not win the election, despite the stupidity of the people who would vote for somebody like that. This is the situational reality. So the answer is this opportunity may not come again. If they do not neutralize the nuclear weapons development capacity of Iran at the present time, it won't happen again. You're not likely to have an opportunity to stop it again in the future. It's got to be stopped now. Mr. Netanyahu knows that, and I think Mr. Trump does as well.
Yeah, I mean, the decision had to be made at some point or another. They stopped it and with Stuxnet years back. They
Yes,
at least derailed it. At
they
least,
tried it. Yes, with
yeah, at least
Stuxnet, they
derailed
tried it.
it. So this is not a new thing, but it became more precarious because we've had, of course, the 16, well, not 16 years, the 12 years of Obama slash Biden administration that continually allowed and not just allowed, but actually helped
Helped,
this program along
actively
the way.
helped.
Yeah,
They,
actively.
he who pays the piper calls the tune. Barack Obama and Biden are responsible for the military, including nuclear military development of Iranian aggression. They picked up the tab for it, and they used our money to do it, and they used frozen assets to do it.
Yeah, quite a bit guilty of that. Jake, I'm going to stay with you because the Iranian missile strikes against Israel have actually brought now inadvertently, some people call it an accident, whatever it may be. They hit Syria on an oil facility, and this is actually we watched some of the video there inside Syria. Is this going to expand, Jacob, as you see other Arab nations that are actively trying to stop Iranian drones and missile attacks into Israel, like Jordan or Saudi Arabia. But now Syria gets hit. Turkey's not happy. Is this going to
Yes.
expand?
First of all, it puts Erdogan in Turkey in a very precarious position. He does not like Israel, does not like what the Israelis are doing. On the other hand, Syria is under the thumb, most of it is under the thumb of himself, of Turkey at the present moment. And this goes back to the fact that Assad was Alawite Muslim,
That's
which
right.
are a branch or a sect of Shia Islam. Hence, the Ba'ath Party of Syria was controlled by Alawites, who were former Shia. It's part of the Shia Sunni schism confrontation. So Iran was favorable to Assad. Assad is gone. Russia is disempowered. The only really remaining power of any major significance in Syria right now is Turkey. And Turkey does not like the Syrian economy being hit.
Mm.
What's bad for Syria at the present time is bad for Turkey as well. So that is the situation. The people who took the biggest bruising would have been Turkey, indirectly, but it would have been Turkey. It would have been Erdogan. Iran has lost its base in Syria. The only friends they have that are actually active are the Houthis and the Shia militias in northern Iraq. That is who they can
Yes.
still have as proxies. Hamas is largely neutralized. Hezbollah is virtually completely neutralized as a military force, though it is still active as a political force. And Hamas and Hezbollah and the state they're in, and the Assad regime gone, the Iranians have gone from 5 proxies down to only 2.
Yeah.
It's not to their advantage.
Yeah. David Lister, I'm going to go to you. The powder keg is set. It's sparking fast. You think it's going to broaden within the Middle East? I mean, this is as precarious as we've seen it in quite a long time.
Yeah, look, I think if we don't finish the job, then and leave Iran alone to keep growing. If we don't finish their nuclear strikes, they're going to become like a North Korea. They're going to get help from Russia. They're going to get help from China. They'll get help from wherever they can get it. And so helping Israel is actually helping America stay a little bit safer, but we're still the great Satan at the end of the day. But I know there's reports coming out now that recent, just the last few hours, that this weekend the U.S. might enter into bombing Iran. So this should get real interesting if these couple of reports are true. So it's the world's in a dangerous place right now, Margot.
No
It's
doubt. It's probably, going back to you guys, this is before I was born, the, 67 war, 73 war. Did you guys see it like this, or is this a lot more escalated?
escalated for
Escalated,
me.
Jacob, what do you think?
Escalated.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of nations involved in those two wars, weren't they? I mean, you had Egypt.
Potentially this could explode into the greatest crisis since the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Wow.
Potential.
Wow.
Yeah. I think because of Iran and the way they think is very much different than the world in the 60s and the 70s. There was at least some common sense and some restraints on people and leaders, even within Russia.
Yes.
So very
Yeah.
much different with the Shiites.
You
Yeah.
can control the Khrushchev, but you can't control the Khomeini.
Yeah,
Right.
that's very true. And now Pakistan has been helpful toward Iran, which is an interesting thing. Pakistan has been sending some arms into Iran, and we'll talk about China and Russia in a minute. But at least from the Muslim side of things, very few Arab countries, very few Muslim countries are supportive of Iran, except for maybe Pakistan and Yemen, which it's just basically Iran 2.0. But that's going to be the interesting thing. What is going to happen with these nations? Jacob, quick thing about the Iranian missile strike. This is hit close to home. Obviously, you lived in Haifa, had a home in Haifa, spent a long time there. Haifa's got hit again today. Beersheba got hit again. Tel Aviv's it's been getting hit. Those three major cities. Obviously, you mentioned on Sunday. I was with you Sunday to see these places where you lived and walked, and it must be really
Work
hard.
Yes. Yes. Well, when you don't just see it on TV, but you know the neighborhood, you even know the buildings sometimes that have been hit. It's psychologically it's quite impactful. And also I think of the believers and people I know who live there. Obviously, people who actually know saved believers, both Jewish and Arab. Um, Concerning what your mention of Pakistan, the Iranians are maintaining that Pakistan is backing Iran more than they're saying, and are saying that if Israel attacks Iran with a nuclear weapon, Pakistan will attack Israel with a nuclear weapon. That's what Iran is saying. Pakistan themselves have not said any such thing. The Pakistani, I think the president of Pakistan was meeting with Trump just yesterday.
Right.
So I think the Iranians are just wishfully thinking at the present time. But we have to understand when Pakistan becomes a factor in the equation, Israel has secret intelligence and cooperation with India against Pakistan.
Right. That's the other
So
war.
that is another dimension. The Pakistanis don't just see it as an issue concerning Iran. They see it as part of the greater geopolitical scenario involving India. This is the situation that we're facing. Remember, Bangalore is the Silicon Valley of Southern Asia. Okay? And Herzliya, Israel, and to a degree Haifa, or the Silicon Valley of the Middle East. So you have a high-tech relationship economically, financially, between Israel and India, as well as strategic cooperation, at least covertly, in the area of intelligence sharing. And Pakistan is caught up in this, being geographically situated between India and Iran. So that is the factor. The Iranians are getting a bit desperate. They're saying things. They're even making themselves a spokesman for for the Pakistanis, but the Pakistanis have not said that themselves. This shows you that there's an instability and an uncertainty in their own leadership. When you have a regime that is unstable, they become unpredictable. They
That's
don't
the
think
problem.
they don't think rationally. As
That's
we
the
always
problem.
say, desperate people will resort to desperate things.
Yeah, David Lister, the obviously the multi-layer missile attack system that the Iran has been sending not only drones, rockets, missiles, and it's overwhelming. Obviously, the Iron Dome is overwhelming. David Sling, Arrow system, the Patriot system. We've had attacks in Haifa, and obviously the one in Beersheba. This is the Soraka Hospital and Medical Center, and that was hard to see because obviously they're targeting where people are getting treated, cancer treatments, children, kindergartens. I mean, that I didn't have the kindergarten one, but there was a footage of a kindergarten being struck. Praise God, there wasn't any casualties in this particular case, Raqqa Medical Center. I don't know what the toll is total of Israelis that have been killed through this, but there's been Arabs who have been killed in Israel, Muslims who have been killed in Israel, Israelis, obviously Jewish people. But tell me a little bit more about they've been overwhelming their system, but things are getting through in high dense population centers.
Yeah, some reports are saying that they have shot some of their own hypersonic missiles to do some of these damages. Also, there's claims, but it hasn't been proven that some of these drones that they're flying in that get through are able to confuse some of the Iron Dome. Now, we don't know if that report's true, but I'm sure it's being tried, that to do anything and everything to make as much problems for Israel and everything, and also this whole fight between Iran and Israel is becoming according to Erdogan, a reaching point of no return. So that's concerning too. That he thinks that this can go too far. So, what is he wanting to look into this and become a participant? More so because of the instability from the Syria strike. So, these hits on these hospitals and schools and all this is, of course, to instill as much terror into the people of Israel. It's to take their peace and their security away. It's psychological warfare. It may not cause a lot of damage, but what it does to people during war is just as harmful.
Yeah, absolutely. Jacob, I want to talk a little bit about cyber warfare because this obviously we have the tactical war, we have the hot war. We also have behind the scenes what we don't see a lot of times is what the National Cyber Director of Israel confirmed this week that Iran has tapped into some of the communications within citizens, sending fake alerts, fake messages, don't go to shelters, don't buy gasoline, and it's causing a lot of confusion for Jews to go into shelters. And obviously, they dismissed this as a false warning. But you also have Israel taking advantage of the Iranian TV stations and taking
Yes.
charge of those. So this is the war behind the war.
A meta war, information war, and a cyber war. We have to remember that the Stuxnet attacks on the Iranian computer systems that are required for nuclear development, that technology is primitive compared to what the NSA and the Israelis both have now. I'm not saying primitive, but it's certainly outdated. There's much more advanced things now. Without doubt, the American NSA, the Israelis, and probably to a degree the Five Eyes British GCHQ, but especially the NSA and the Israelis are involved in counter cyber warfare. We only see what is happening from the Iranian side. We're not seeing what is happening from the Israeli or Israeli American side. However, what is almost for certain, and I can say this with a 95, if not 99% certainty, the cyber warfare capacity that Iran does have was achieved with the assistance of Russia and China. They would not have the capacity to do it exclusively on their own. They are getting that assistance from Russia and China. China and Russia have played a bigger hand in this even though it's an invisible hand now, than most of the media is reporting.
Yeah, it's scary, Jacob, the with the cybersecurity and all that as a big part of it. It's the espionage that Iran is involved in. In recent reports, not only here in the States, but also in Israel, which was also troubling as well. They're sending these messages via Telegram or
Yes,
WhatsApp, different versions, different platforms. And young Israelis are getting these messages. I don't know from who. They just sort of like, hey, do this, do that. They give them some task. And recently, two of them were caught up in the north because they were going to install some cameras in front of
yes,
Katz's house, and they were looking for
yes,
information on Neftali Bennett's recent surgeries. These are not spies. They're just simply people that like
yes.
others. They get involved.
Naive.
They don't know what they're doing. They just like, hey, do this, and we'll give you some money. And as people become desperate, and obviously people are needing money, they're not working. Here in the States, it's happening the same way. People are they're not working, they need money, and Iran is taking advantage of those people like that to pass down information, just a little
Yeah.
here, a little
Well,
there.
that is one of the reasons that I am utterly opposed to TikTok. It
Mm,
needs to be taken over and made independent of any Chinese ownership,
yeah.
and it needs to be the programming needs to be completely reconfigured on the grounds of national security. There should be no TikTok allowed. Again, this technology, although it may be used by the Iranians, it's originating in China and Russia, uh,
Yeah.
at least to a formidable degree. Now, it's a two-way street. The Israelis were phoning people and sending messages by text and everything all over Gaza, all over Gaza. Your house is going to be blown up in 5 minutes. Get your children, get out of there, things like this. Um, I'm not saying that the Iranians are as advanced as the Israelis or the Americans, but it's a two-way game. Um, put it to you this way. Russia and China are testing their cyber warfare capacities using Iran as a proxy to do it. They're trying to perfect their own cyber warfare potential to be used against the United States, the West, Taiwan, whoever, and they're using Iran as a test laboratory to do it. This has always gone on in the Middle East with hardware and software, and it's happening now. We have to understand there's a hidden hand here, and that hand
Yes.
is in Moscow and in Beijing.
Yeah. David Lister, any thoughts on the cybersecurity threats? I mean, that's pretty interesting. Now it's at a very low level. These are not spies. They're just simply people that are desperate for money, and they'll do anything for a couple $100. And Iran is using that now to get just intel, just to get intel. I mean, information. I mean, that's pretty heavy. Katz's house and Naftali Bennett's medical reports, plus whatever else we don't know that they are doing, especially here in America, being so broad, and we don't even know how many people are sympathetic toward the Iranian regime.
And it is an interesting way to get around the world's second oldest profession of which is spying, using spies.
Right.
It takes a long time to convince a man to turn on a country and pay him money and that you can protect them, everything the CIA used to do pretty well but now fails at that job. And so here you get somebody on a TikTok or something, hey, make some extra money on the side. And we have such naive people that don't think things through. They don't have the critical facilities to think why somebody would want this.
They're the
You know,
perfect person, right? They're the perfect person for
yeah,
Iran. Yeah.
astute, and then I don't know, I just I got a job on the side,
And
and
this
now
what David
and
is
now
saying.
this is my job. What's your job? Well, I just go set these cameras up for these people. I'm an independent contractor,
Oh my
which
God. I'm
yeah,
laughing. I'm laughing not because it's not serious. I'm laughing because how silly it is, right? Oh man. Oh,
yeah, but it is a force multiplier for our enemies. And then also now, like Jacob just talked about TikTok, but we know there's been another 90-day extension
I just
granted
gotta tell you.
for
Yeah.
selling it,
Third
you
week, third
know.
time. Sorry, third
Yeah,
time that
yeah,
it's been extended.
yeah. But
We have
also I
to
think, yeah. Go ahead, Jacob. Yeah.
we have to understand something also. The devastating impact is never reported of DIE by Biden particularly. It began with the appointment of Panetta to oversee intelligence by Barack Obama, a man with no background in intelligence. But Biden had people in the Pentagon and in the intelligence community, in the deep state, who were there because of their identity politics, because of race, because of sexual orientation, because of gender, because of whatever, who didn't know what they were doing, but they were just appointed to those positions for the sake of DIE politics. This is how stupid the American government was under Biden and Harris. And of course, it began with Obama. He had bad people. Donald Trump's failure was he made errors in judgment of character. He would appoint people like John Bolton, who was a rhino. He made certain mistakes, absolutely. He's not making those mistakes as much now. I will give that to his credit. He's learned from his mistakes from his first administration. But you have people in the Pentagon uh, and in the CIA who are only there because of being a lesbian or being a black lesbian or being whatever, but not because they have any ability or background in what they're doing. These were the priorities. You have people who are appointed because of their positions on climate change, not because they know anything about combat or warfare. This is how bad it became under the Democrats. Thank God, thank God that we do not have that bimbo in the Oval Office at a time of crisis like this.
Jacob, speaking of that, I'm going to ask you this. Trump says complete surrender, 2 weeks. Comes
Yeah.
back to the G7 and says, you got 2 weeks. We know that from the time that he told them 60 days, 2 months, 60 days roughly. On day 61, the attacks began on Tehran. Are we looking at that? You got 2 weeks to negotiate, says Trump. Is he going to hold to that?
And he doesn't tell you when the clock began ticking. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this could be day 4, right? And they think it's day 1.
He knows that China lies. He knows that Islam has permissible lying, taqweed, their doctrine. You can lie in a jihad to the infidel. Um, he plays their game. They never know what he's going to do or if he's telling them the truth or not, or if he's telling them a half truth. He keeps them guessing. He is Mr. Poker Face. He does not think in terms of ideology as such. He thinks in terms of leverage and strategy. He thinks like a businessman, um, instead of like a liberal idiot, which most of them are. He doesn't. He's not like Jake Sullivan and Austin and Susan Rice and these stupid people who Biden and Obama had. Now, again, having said that, it's not a partisan issue. Bush and Cheney were absolutely pathetic, getting America into these boots on the ground wars, thinking they could bring about regime change in Islamic countries. There was nobody more inept than George Bush and Cheney. They're no better. But Mr. Trump is different. I don't always agree with him, but compared to the others, he's playing smart poker.
I'm going to say with you, Jacob, the Europeans are saying, well, we'll meet with Iran since the U.S. doesn't want to meet with Iran. And Iran's very, very happy that the E3, that would be the UK, France, and Germany, are going to meet with them. Actually, I believe it's this weekend. They're going to meet in Geneva. They're going to have a 2 week window. And even David Lammy was very optimistic, he says. He went to talk to Marco Rubio and he says, I'm very optimistic we're going to get this done. I don't know if you trust David Lammy to, babysit your dog or anything like that, but wouldn't trust him either. But he's involved. He is involved, like it or not.
I wouldn't trust Lammy to clean a public lavatory. I don't think you could pass. I don't think you could pass the IQ test to get the job. But that's Lammy. It, you know, these are has-been powers. That is the underlying philosophy of the EU. France is a has-been power. Britain only remained a power because of the special relationship with the United States and residually the Commonwealth. And Germany has now collapsed as the economic dynamo of Europe. They've all had it. The only way they can exert power and influence in the world is to combine, is to unite. That is the only way they can be a player on the global stage. But even if they do that, they still are going to have to do business with the White House.
Yeah, this is the
They
problem.
don't matter. They don't
Yeah.
matter. You know,
I don't know, David Lister, are they running? Is Iran running to the wrong person here? I mean, what are they going to accomplish in Geneva? Even if they do get anything done, they're even saying, well, Donald Trump doesn't want to meet with you, so we will meet with you and get something done. Even if David Lammy, I don't know, lays the red carpet out for them, is it even going to matter?
No, especially not if Trump decides to put American troops and actually come active in there. They won't have any say in it. But look, they do need to keep the money flowing because they do want to bring over more weapons and have the capabilities to create more weapons or buy weapons from their allies. So, ever since
Marco. Yeah.
I mean, Biden, most people know that Biden released 6 billion to Iran to destroy America, but nobody mentions the 10 billion they got for that Biden allowed
Oh yeah,
Iran to sell electricity to
yeah,
Iraq.
The-
So
yes,
you know,
and the hard cash that came on pallets in an airplane
yeah,
illegally that
yeah.
Obama lied about. Um,
Unfrozen assets,
Well, look at what happened yesterday, Marco. American tactical fighters, I believe they were F-35s, maybe
F-35s.
some F-42s, F-22s, but certainly
yeah.
F-35s. Where did they fly to when they left the United States en route to the Middle East? They flew to Mildenhall, England.
Yeah.
The British still have to open their bases. It doesn't matter what Lammy says.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Yeah, it's just redundant.
It's all political theater. It's
Yeah,
show. It doesn't matter what he says.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, he's throwing his weight around as if it really matters. But I don't think at the end of the day it's going to matter too much. What I mean, they asked Macron about the issue because he was upset that Germany was siding with Israel, that they had the right to defend themselves and all that at the G7 meeting. And Macron was like, "No, let's talk about the Palestinian state. This is going to get in the way of the Palestinian state." And they were asking him, well, what does this have to do with the Palestinian state? We're talking about Iran, Israel, and the United States. But he kept harping on this. I mean, the guy's lost his thinking. I mean, he's so in love with the
Not only that,
Palestinian
he's
state.
under intimidation domestically from Muslims.
Muslims,
Is
yes.
Oh, his wife.
Paris is surrounded by a belt of slums. The whole Paris metropolitan area used to be called Ile-de-France. It's surrounded by a belt of slums called the banlieue, inhabited 85% by Muslims from Algeria, Morocco, and other African countries that were formerly French colonies. Paris is hemmed in geographically by Muslims. He's in trouble.
Yeah, no doubt. David Lister, do you think there's any traction to see Reza Pahlavi back as he was the prince at one time? Now he would be somewhat back in as the I don't know the king. I don't know what they would actually call him, but the son of the
Uh,
Shah. Do you think any traction in that? I mean, he's got a 100-day plan. He made a video, actually well done video. Actually, I watched it. It was translated about his 100-day transition from the mullahs to his government and trying to get reestablished back what they used to have prior to 1979.
Well, he is calling for the people of Iran to overthrow the mullahs and everything. There seems to be some movement towards the overthrowing and taking over some places in Iran. It's a bit fluid, but at the same time, you're seeing support of Iranians coming out. Now, can he run in there and he would be seem to be the natural course because he's been plotting his return since he left. So he's made friends and everything. And so just because there's a vacuum, a lot of times things can happen in a minute if there was an opening. So it's possible he could get in there. Would he be the choice for America at this point? We're not sure. And then we also need to think about the Kurd question there in Iran because you've got a lot of Kurds that don't like Shiites that could be helpful. So
Yes.
we'll see what happens there. That they're And they're not friends with Erdogan either, because that he still fights the Kurds to this day, and takes away their homeland. So there's some interesting things there. I mean, the Kurds, maybe a government of the people would be the best, combination of Persians and Kurds who are pro-West.
Yeah, Jacob, the Reza, it's very pro-Israel, very pro-Christian, very pro. I mean, he's quoting Bible verses, Ezra 1, the Chronicles, and he's talking about Cyrus, and he sees himself as some kind of reestablishing that relationship that they once had. Is there a chance you think this guy could bring back that stability, relationship with Israel, diplomacy, right relationship with the West, Christian freedom?
Ultimately, there's going to be a conflict with Daniel 10. Now, either the present scenario is it or it isn't, or is a prelude to it. Ultimately, we know Daniel 10 is what's going to have to happen. And there'll be something involving the Prince of Greece as well as the principalities controlling Europe, which at that time was Greece, as well as Persia, Iran. Okay, we have to bear that in mind and look at everything through that prism. In the short to medium term, however, let us understand the historical perspective. The peacock throne, going back to Cyrus the Great, who they call Kirush, was always friendly to Israel and remained until the fall of the Shah, for which Jimmy Carter bears partial responsibility, being a very weak president. And they knew it. There is a aim to see that restored. Now, secondly, he's an educated Iranian and a westernized Iranian, obviously, and he has a historical perspective. He understands that Shia Islam was not the original religion of Iran. They were Zoroastrian. Their culture was Zoroastrian. Their religious beliefs came from Zarathustra. They were, again, influenced by the Hebrew prophet Daniel, by Esther and Mordecai from the book of Esther. That is why the Magi came to when Christ was born. He has it's sort of, I'd say it's like Singapore. They might be Buddhist, but they're still influenced by Confucianism. Well, he's an Iranian. He might be nominally Muslim, but he's still influenced by Zoroastrianism, if that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Atop of his westernization. He wants to see that kind of restoration of something that existed. That is ideally what he would prefer. He was all the Pahlavi family were also anti-communist. Now, look, the Shah was accused of being despotic, and he was rather egotistical, his father, but he was a lot better than anything that's happened since. The Iranian people are far worse off. Everyone is far worse off since he fell from power. When Ayatollah Khomeini came to power, that was another disaster. They tried to save Iran from the mullahs and from Ayatollah Khomeini with Bani Sadr. But Bani Sadr did not get the kind of support he needed from Carter to prevent the mullahs from taking over the country. There was also a fear that the communists would get it. The communists made a play for Iran in the 1950s. Stalin made a play after the Second World War to get control of Iran. And Truman actually threatened nuclear war against Stalin if they did it. It was the CIA and the British that overthrew the communist political party in Iran and brought the Shah to power. So the present son of the Shah, the prince, who lives in California, some of the family lives in Connecticut, they have a very historical perspective, both an ancient historical perspective and a very modern one, a post-war one, going up to 1979. That is his thinking. The question is there any basis to have a government in exile, a shadow government in exile? I don't think it exists, and I don't think it can be created all that quickly. That is part of the danger of the communists of a left-wing faction who helped bring about the fall of the Shah getting power. Let's remember, the fall of the Shah didn't only happen because of the mullahs and the extreme Muslims. It happened because of the communists as well. The communists of Iran had certain ideological similarities to the Ba'ath Party of Iraq where Saddam Hussein was from,
Right.
and Syria, where Assad and Assad's father was from. So that is the issue. You're looking at the threat of communism, of the extreme left, who would be predisposed to making deals with Russia and more so with China. You're looking at the Pahlavi himself, and then you're looking at the mullahs. You've got three choices. Now, of the three, he would ideally be the most preferred. But is it a practical possibility? This is a very, very big question. There is no government in exile, and I don't know how fast they can make one.
Yeah. And
Yeah, the
I
one thing you don't
remember
want
sometime.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
Go
I
ahead.
remember sometime back, a few years back, 2 or 3 years back, there was a poll of Persians in exile, as well as, I mean, and even within Iran, that only 40% of the people wanted him. So he even has a
Yeah,
doesn't have an overwhelming rating from all the Persians.
that's
So
Yeah. What
and
you
let's
don't want to see
and
is
also
the MEK, which is the Mujahideen, which is Jacob was talking about the communists. They're the
yes,
ones who are anti-mullahs but pro-communist. And Jacob,
absolutely.
this is scary. They're made a lot of inroads with the Labour Party in the UK, and they even
Yes,
made inroads here with somewhat conservative guys like Mike Pompeo. This is the scary thing. Are they buying their way into being the choice if the mullahs fall?
they would like to. They would like to. Um, but let's look at that even beyond that. Um, a lot of what happened in post-war Iran had to do with oil and the politics of oil. British Petroleum basically controlled most of the economy of Iran. That is what basically happened, and why the CIA intervened, and why they brought the Shah to power. It was to stop Stalin. Okay, Stalin is gone, but the MEK are dangerous. It's foolish to try to negotiate with such people. It was left-wing students in America who supported the MEK. They hated the Shah, but that doesn't mean they liked Khomeini. It was basically the uneducated people of places like North Tehran who fully supported um, the mullahs. Now, there's one other thing I'd point out. You had a large Persian Jewish community, okay? Most of them left to California or to Israel. They're quite affluent. Some of them are extremely affluent. Okay. They again look back to this history of Cyrus the Great and Darius the Mede. Uh,
Right.
that is what they look to. They very much prospered under the Shah. The Shah did not trust Shias. Everybody who worked for him was either a Jew or a Baha'i. All of the people who surrounded him, except for family, were Jews or Baha'is. They were his bureaucrats. He never trusted the Shias, and he certainly didn't trust the communists. That was the situation. Um, the Shias, of course, hate the Baha'is because they believed Ba'ula, the Bab, was the Mahdi. So they hate them as well. Not that I have any love for the Baha'is, for the Baha'i cult, but they've been another factor in Iranian politics. And of course, the Jewish factor. The Jewish community is very pro Pahlavi family. And you've got some very wealthy Iranian Jews, Persian Jews in Israel and in California.
Yeah. You know what's interesting, Jake? I never heard anybody talk about this, but he did. Pavlovi did. One was the water crisis that Iran has, and how he looks to Israel as a way to get rid of that, or to basically address that issue that they have that most people don't even.
Desalination, yes.
Yeah, and looking for a way to make that happen. And the other thing he mentioned that was interesting is Hezbollah, how Hezbollah is no longer the threat it used to be, but now the sleeper cells within England, the UK, within the United
Yeah.
States. That's where the trouble is. I want to pivot to that because Hezbollah leaders are saying we're gonna vow to act appropriately if the U.S. gets involved, or if England gets involved, the UK gets involved. So is that a real threat, Jacob? You got the FBI talking about it now, sleeper cells in the U.S.
That is always a threat. And we again thank Obama and Biden for giving them visas. Um, Hezbollah itself is neutralized as a military power in Lebanon. but it remains a political power. Why? Because of its social welfare programs that have been funded by Iran that give food and medical aid and education programs to all Lebanese, not just to Shias. Um, and therefore, they still have a political voice within Lebanon politics and government, even though they're non-operative as a military force anymore. But there are sleeper cells. And those sleeper cells are not necessarily Hezbollah. The Iranians have sleeper cells that could just be Iranian.
Right,
Another,
IRGC supporters.
another thing to look at is there were also Kurdish Jews. The Jews had a friendship with the Kurds because the Kurds were the descendants of the ancient Medes who were partners with the Persians in the Persian Median Empire, Darius the Mede, as in the Book of Ezra and Nehemiah and so forth. Okay, the Kurds are hated by the Turks, hated by the Turks, but the Kurds are important players not only in Turkey but in Iraq, to a
Yep.
degree in Syria, and in Iran. That is another factor, the Kurdish factor. The Kurds were, of course, betrayed by the United States after
Yep.
the downfall of Saddam Hussein. They were betrayed by Bush, and they were betrayed, obviously, by Obama. They were just betrayed. They were our friends. They stood with us, and then we betrayed them, or at least our corrupt leaders did of both parties. But they are also a factor. They would do anything to have a state and to control their oil
Oh,
resources around
yeah.
Kirkuk. The problem is getting water access, getting a port. That would be the problem because they're landlocked. So it can go any way you can imagine.
Yeah. Jay, I'm going to go to you real quick. Do you feel safer now that the FBI is on to the sleeper cells? I mean, Kash Patel swears up and down, not going to happen in my watch. The White House is saying we're on it. They obviously see the threat. We talked about one of the incidents. So, people just getting text messages, random text messages on Telegram or on WhatsApp and say, hey, do this, do that. Did you sleep better now that Kash Patel is aware of this problem?
I think Kash Patel should change his name to Barney Fife because honestly, I'd feel safer under him
Wow.
than FBI.
Wow.
Look, the FBI has been compromised for a very long time, and now we have a serious internal threat. We've had people like Antifa and the BLM riots for the past couple of years. And what did the FBI do? It rounded up people from January 6th.
Yep.
So do I think I'm protected by the FBI? No. I think only people who would actually stop the crimes of maybe some Hezbollah terrorist cells, those are the real threats, the FBI and the CIA.
Mm.
James, do you think that Cash Patel is trying to address that situation and correct it?
I think there comes a
I
point.
mean, he would agree with you. His own words echo what you just said. He thinks the same way you think about the FBI. Do you think he's trying to correct it?
I think he should take they take the dog and go around the shed and shoot it, and then get a new dog.
So do I. So do I. But
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, get a David Lister, real quick. The Hezbollah has been known, and Iran is known to be working with South American gangs way back in the early 2000s, going into Venezuela, the Tren de Aragua, all these gangs that we know now because of the illegal immigration coming into states. Hezbollah and other organizations, let's put it that way, have been active in supporting them, through drug trafficking and obviously supporting directly money wise. That's the real threat, isn't it? Where you have maybe not even national Iranians or supporters of Iran directly, but proxies like gangs that have come into the States, and you have NGOs that have brought him in. Hezbollah has been captured here. We've had some incidents here in Dallas and in LA where you had supporters of Hezbollah, supporters of Hamas. This is a real issue that I think it needs to be addressed not only here in the States, but you had an attack in London today, South London, or Central London, I should say, by Princess Gate, by the Iranian embassy, of supporters of the IRGC attacking those who are not for the IRGC. So things are heating up even in our home soil back in the UK as well.
Yeah, definitely is a problem. I mean, this fifth column, is I think they call these things, of these people that have come into our country, which the cartel says our own government has said there's at least 2 million people that paid the cartels extra money so that they could come in and be snuck in. So this would be Chinese, which they don't particularly like us. This could be Hezbollah, Hamas. This could be all sorts of um agents that hate America, that could cause strikes, could set off bombs, could cause a attack with weapons. The lone wolves, as it were, that are a threat, that set off, put that bomb out in Times Square that one time and other places. So this is a serious threat. I hope Cash can fix something, but I've never been very supportive of the FBI. They spied on my generation and worked against us, and I think they work against Americans. And they were partly involved in creating a January 6th to cover up the stolen election from China and other agents.
Yeah, they were involved in the Warren Commission cover-up.
Everything.
They've
Yeah.
always, going back to J. Edgar Hoover, who was a corrupt little perv, if anything, they'd never been any good.
Yeah, they had to go find Texas Rangers to catch their first cases, to fix their first cases. So from the beginning, they were never very good.
What a
And
mess. What a
to
mess.
your to both of your points, now that we're actually in trouble, now that we actually have an enemy that can do legitimate damage, that by the way, they turn their heads the other way and let them in. Now they're going to say, well, see, you need us more now than ever.
Yeah.
Support the local
Problem.
sheriffs.
Yes, that is absolutely true. We have hit the hour mark, and I just want to remind everyone you're watching Catching Up with Jacob, episode 239. Jay, am I right?
Yep, I
Oh,
think
how
you
did I
are.
guess that one? And we were watching on YouTube and Facebook Live. We're watching that for now because I'm backstage. We're going to go to we're not going to be on those. We're going to stay on the other ones. We're going to stay on Rumble, X, Vimeo. We're going to stay on Telegram. We're going to stay on our local ones, Memorial.tv, memorialtv.org. But we won't be on YouTube and Facebook for backstage. If you're there now, you can hit the like, share it, subscribe to it so that we can get it out to other people and beat the algorithm that they are desperately trying to censor a lot of the truth that's coming out. Jacob Prash, Putin and Xi now, and of course, King Jong from North Korea have now weighed in. Everybody was with bated breath expecting what they were going to say. They, of course, slam Israel, and at the same time, they want to be the conduits of peace. They want to mediate the peace talks, which the United States says, no, no thanks. But they are pressing in. Of course, China has been flying into Iran. We have
Yes.
some street flights from China. God knows what they're bringing in, but they are very active in it because they know that their interest is being jeopardized by the oil that is not going to be available as readily
Yes.
as they had. So, Jacob, walk us through that. China, Russia, North Korea weighing in on this.
There've been at least 5 flights. North Korea only behaves internationally at the behest of China. When you know, North Korea only do what China tells them to do. They have no real prowess of their own on the global stage. They're just a sideshow.
Yeah.
Okay. But they're the kind of proxy China can use to do things that China wouldn't want to do itself. They make a good stooge, they make a good fall guy. They're crazy, they're crazy enough to do things that China would not be able to do because it would threaten its own interests. So they get a proxy to do it for them. That's North Korea. They're out of it. Putin is so up to his eyeballs in the Ukraine. He among other things needs a diversion. He has lost his platform in the Middle East, which was Syria. And what he's really concerned about is oil. The embargoes are affecting him, the price of oil, and what will happen with Iran. He's also getting drones and military ordnance from Iran. The Iranians were manufacturing drones and UAVs for the Russian army to use against the Ukrainians. So there are defense and oil considerations motivating Putin. China, it's essentially oil, essentially wanting oil and influence in the Middle East. So again, when you see how weak countries uniting, they're trying to get power by uniting that they cannot get individually. Right now, China is out of the game. They can't do anything about Iran on their own. Russia is out of the game because of what's happened to their economy and what is happening in the Ukraine. North Korea is a sideshow. They're just a, a chihuahua on a leash. They don't really matter. That is what is happening. But you put them together, they can make trouble. When you put them together, they can make trouble.
With the price of oil, Jacob, stay with you, with the price of oil spiking and the threat that if they shut the Strait of Hormuz and all kinds of stuff could happen with the Houthis, who knows? The price of oil can hit $130 supposedly. It is now over close to 80 now. They're looking to Russia and Saudi Arabia, along with the U.S., to stabilize the price as they did in 2020. The opposite way in 2020 was it was sinking because no one was using oil at the time. They stabilized it. Now they want to stabilize it the other way. As it goes up, you're looking to Russia to do it. This is interesting, isn't it?
Well, look, the only options are Venezuela, but their infrastructure for pumping the oil is dilapidated. Okay, so their side showed they're third rate. Even though they have the oil, their production capacity is third rate. Canada is it's sand, it's shale, sand shale.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah.
Again, filthy, dirty, environmentally disgusting. Um, and Canada is in financial economic problems itself. Okay. The United States remains the biggest producer and a player. The Americans can team up with the Saudis, and I believe if pressured, the Saudis would do what the Americans want, to keep the prices under $100 a barrel
Right.
if Straits of Hormuz are closed. But don't forget, if they do that, Iran is also hurting itself. Iran is also hurting itself. And their economy is in such bad shape, can they afford to do it? What I would say is send a message. We're going to level Karg Island and destroy your oil industry completely. So, also, it is possible to take out Iranian naval targets um, with fighter aircraft. The Americans could do that. They could. Don't forget, the American Navy destroyed two-thirds of the Iranian Navy in one day about 15 years ago.
Well,
In one day. Um, they could do it again, especially now that Iran does not have air superiority. What are they going to do?
well,
Yeah. No doubt. Go ahead, David.
one thing that they're worried about is, of course, mines. Okay, and now they've got drones, undersea drones that have the capability of carrying mines and actually delivering them. So that's a problem. And also the placement of mines by drones. But fortunately, America has got drones now that can
They got the
go
mines.
after these underwater. So it's they have a counter to that. So
That's right.
the thing is, it's so narrow there. Sink a couple, three ships, and you've got navigational problems, and then it could take weeks to clear it, or at least some time. So there is some concerns.
The Straits of Hormuz is vulnerable. There's no question.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Jacob, I ran into this, and this is a really interesting one. China and Russia are somewhat friendly. Somewhat friendly. It's always been tension there, and ancient war enemies. Comes to find out that China's been spying on Russia, and
Yes.
they ever since well, it's quite a while ago, even before the Ukraine war.
They've never stopped spying on Russia.
Yeah, but it got more intense when the Ukraine war started, because what China wanted to know was how do these Western weapons work? How do they work and what they do? And so they sort of used this war as some kind of a test field,
Yeah,
sort of
sure.
finding out exactly what Western weapons are all about. And so the hacking began, and this was found out by a team called Team T5 from Taiwan that uncovered this and published it.
Yeah.
Everybody can watch the report and can read it. In the document, find out that Russia doesn't trust China either. So internal document says Russia does not look to China as a friend, and
And
China doesn't
it is a
trust Russia.
it is a Churchill-Stalin relationship.
Oh man, if
It's
it
a
wasn't so tragic,
Churchill-Stalin
it would be
relationship.
funny. If it
It's
wasn't
an
so tragic,
alliance
it
of
would be funny.
convenience. Um, Remember, China is like France historically. It has no friends, only opportunities.
Yeah. Oh, also on the straits, got to remember China couldn't afford the straits to be closed either, so they may put pressure on Iran, and that might be why some of these flights, because they get almost 70% of their oil from there.
And very cheaply too. Jacob, I'm going to focus on a couple of subjects. The last two will be the United States and the UK. Here in the States, and wanted to get your opinion on this, is the DNC is facing a revolt. You and I talked about it earlier in the week, how one after another are leaving. They're draining of cash. 60% of Democrats want leadership to be replaced in the DNC. So this is Democrats who vote Democrat, who contribute to the Democratic Party. They want that leadership to be changed. And what it says, they believe the DNC is focused on too many non-vital issues, such as woke, such as transgenderism, such as abortion. And so whopping 62% of Democrats don't like the leadership. Well, that would include Ken Martin. That would include well, he's now gone, David Hogg. That would include Bernie Sanders. That would include the Clintons. That would include all kinds of people. Jacob, are we going to see a breakup of what we've known as the DNC and maybe even get more radical with people like AOC and Omar? Or are we going to back to the center?
Okay, let's understand that it's a broad fragmentation. We can talk about the Democrats, but we cannot take them in isolation. You have not only a fragmentation in the Republican Party between the rhinos and the Trump conservatives, but you have a fragmentation among the conservatives between the MAGA Republican conservatives and the libertarian ones. So it is across the Republican Party is not without its own
Yeah,
fragmentation.
we're going to get to the conservative in a minute,
Okay.
but just talk about
Now we're
DNC.
talking about the Democrats.
Yeah,
You've got three factors. Traditional Democratic Party is gone. There's only ever been a vestige. One of the last vestiges was, of course, Joe Lieberman.
yeah,
After
Lieberman.
him, it was somewhat Manchin, somewhat. After Manchin, now it's Fetterman. Okay,
Yeah.
they represent what the Democratic Party was in the days of JFK, Sam Nunn, Scoop Jackson, and so forth. But they're only a remnant of a historical past that no longer exists. Okay, the Dixiecrats are long gone. Okay, the conservative Democrats are long gone from the South, and they were bigots anyway. So they're long gone. So what you have now is the establishment represented by Obama, the Clintons, people like that, who control the 100 superdelegates. There's nothing democratic about the Democratic Party. They're the establishment. There's nothing democratic.
Oh, yeah, right. You're right.
Primaries won't matter. It's the superdelegates. The establishment will make the decision. Okay, there's them trying to protect Schumer, people like that, Pelosi, trying to protect their own power base. And then you have the radical wing begun by Bernie Sanders and coming up the next generation, that wacky woman, the wacky women from the squad.
AOC.
Alejandro Cortez and Presley and these other Croc and these other wackos. Okay, they're afraid that the youth of the Democratic Party are going to um, attack the establishment, go in with the establishment. This guy, what was his name? Hogg is now gone.
David
He
Hogg's gone.
He's gone. Okay. Another thing that's really troubling them, if they had any sense, but they don't like to talk about it, is the abandonment of the party by Hispanics, the abandonment of the party by an increasing number of blacks, the abandonment of the party by increasing numbers of Jews who realize that only 1/3 of the party supports Israel now. Republicans are more pro-Zionist, and the abandonment of the party, above all, by traditional blue-collar workers from the Rust Belt. They're no longer the party of Boilermakers and of tool and die makers and of machinists and of United Auto Workers. More and more of those people see the Trump, MAGA, as the party that represents them. So it is a
Right.
party in deep fragmentation. It is also a party that is seeing its donations decrease.
Oh man.
Obama was yelling almost, trying to be civilized. You tell he was angry. He was frustrated, speaking about the declining contributions by affluent Democrats to the party. Remember, 92% of the mutual funds are controlled by liberal Democrats. 92%. Most of them are in New York City or in Greenwich, Connecticut. 92%. All BlackRock, all that's solidly Democrat. State Street, solidly Democrat. What's the other one? Vanguard, solidly
Vanguard.
Democrat.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and of course, Soros. So they are no longer seen as the party of the working people, but they're the party of the aristocracy. Now they're trying to lie and say, "Look at Trump; he's a billionaire. Look at look at Elon Musk. What about you? You know what I mean?"
He owns 6 homes.
They've only been able to lie up. They cannot lie as effectively as they once could, because the mainstream media does not have the power it once did because of the new media.
Yeah,
I-
that's right.
Hey,
David, what do you
Marco?
think? What do you think?
Well, I'm enjoying that what Musk did, destroying aid, has really put a hurt on Act Blue. I don't know if many people know about it, but Act Blue has been sending, they'll take a donor that's made a $20 contribution to the dens and they turn it into a machine to crank out, 10 donations a day from that person for $20 day in, day out, and been able to funnel millions upon millions of dollars to the Democrats. Well, that machine has been shut down. And so the Democrats are hurting financially. And so I'm enjoying that side of the thing. I like when their own people say we're broke. Now, we all are smart enough to know that if they find another bad guy to come in and be their leader, they'll fund him. You'll have these billionaires, such as the crazy Walton lady from that now lives in Mexico. She'll fund, so will some other billionaires. They'll fund the Democrats again. But if they get somebody that can support the 80% issues, unlike these Dems today that support the 20% issues that 80% of the people are against. So I just hope they keep bleeding more people and just keep being stupid. And I'd love my third part of my prayer is that I prayed that the Democratic Party would go into the dustpan of history.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's
So
cheer them on.
two-thirds that fight against each other, the Lord has answered. They're consuming each other. And so I'm very happy for answered prayer in this respect. So, but I would love to see it disappear. But then my fear is they'll find a party like Jacob started talking about that will contain younger people that will be touchy-feely, that will be actually destroyers, wolves in sheep's clothing, that will
Yeah.
be worse than the ones we've got.
Another
you got
thing that's
that.
happening that they're almost ignoring is that there is a turn towards political conservatism and religious conservatism among Generation Z.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's massive, but it's evident.
It
Yeah.
is starting. Yep.
You know what's interesting, Jake? If you listen to what they're saying on their social media page, just where they're targeting young people, one of the things that they're angry about, the DNC, and it's like, why have we lost young male vote? Why have we lost a young male vote? And particularly, why have we lost a young male Caucasian vote? They're trying to hold on to the Hispanic vote and the black vote. That's not working. But especially the white Caucasian vote, they look at people like Joe Rogan and Elon Musk
Yep.
and they go, how do we lose these guys? And it's only obvious. It is only, but so they're trying to ramp up TikTok. They're trying to ramp up
Yep.
X, which I don't even know why they even go on X. Most people don't even think like that on X. What's the one that they came
That
out with?
woman,
No, the platform.
Blue
JD Vance
Sky.
put on the take the Blue Sky. Yeah, they're trying to
Blue Sky
Blue
crashing
Sky, which is
down.
a nightmare, right? And they can't imagine. So guess what they're turning, Jacob? AI. AI is their saving grace to try to come up with a plan to bring males back into the DNC. I don't know how they're going to do it, but somehow AI is going to figure it out, they think.
Is it?
Maybe good-looking animated women that can become your girlfriend if you become a dim.
Well, you know what? You're not too far from the truth because they realize men are lonely. And so
Yeah.
they're having to come up with ideas of how to get, girls to text, these guys that are lonely, DNC guys, and be like, hey, baby, vote for me, that kind of thing. I don't know how that's going to work, but it hasn't worked in the past, but I guess it does sell. So, but I did want to talk about Jacob, on the conservative side, the right wing side. They're divided over, obviously, should the U.S. be involved in any foreign war, isolationist versus interventionist. And the big issue is Israel. Many people believe that going into this war with Iran is like the Iraqi war that Bush sent us
Yeah.
into. And people like Tucker Carlson, who interviewed recently Ted Cruz, and we looked at some of that footage, and that was a pretty heated, and it was mainly surrounding Genesis 12:3 and what does that mean, and mainly surrounding should we even be involved with Israel? Should we bless Israel? But it's not just him, Steve Bannon, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owen, Douglas McGregor, to say the least. Other ones follow suit as well, that are generally seen as conservative, even pro-Christian. Even some of them call themselves Christian. Russell Brand's not from the States, but he portrays himself as a Christian in some sort of way, are also against Israel or even the U.S. being involved with Israel. So, Jacob, we'll go to you. That's also dividing the conservative slash right wing libertarian ideas.
Yes. First of all, they're failing to make a distinction between aerial war, naval war, cyber war, information war, and boots on the ground, terrestrial war. They're not making that kind of a distinction. It is a huge distinction. When you can achieve strategic and tactical objectives aerially, and not even necessarily have to use pilots flying planes, but you can use drones, you can use UAVs, you can use other types of ordnance delivery systems. You're comparing apples and oranges. They're making a mistaken comparison. Secondly, Mr. Trump's policies are leveraged. They're not like Bush. Bush was driven by this stupid idea that you can bring about regime change and bring about change to the Muslim world. MacArthur did that with Japan. But as I've said before, he demythologized the Shinto religion. He made the emperor come to him, admit he wasn't a god, and say that Shintoism was only to do with culture and things like this and religious ethics. But he deified, he demythologized the Shinto religion. Now, you'd have to demythologize Islam
Yeah.
to MacArthurize the Muslim world. But Bush being, first of all, too corrupt, the Saudi Arabians had him in his back pocket. Like his old man, he was just too damn corrupt as his training. And he also was personally too stupid. He was not a man of very high intelligence. And he wasn't surrounded by people of high intelligence. Sorry for saying damn, but he was quite damnable. Horrible man, horrible man who did tremendous damage to this country. So therefore, people will try to read the present situation in light of the history and the damage done to the country by Bush. Remember, Trump reversed the policies of Bush. He took as many American troops out of Afghanistan as possible. He just didn't want the Taliban to take over. And he would have taken them out eventually until
Yeah.
Biden decided to give the country back to the Taliban on a silver platter. No, there is no equivalency between Mr. Trump and Mr. Bush. And there is no equivalency between a aerial war and a boots on the ground war, and a war where the ordnance is not delivered by human beings, but by drones, but by remotely piloted aerial vehicles. Um, they just are pretty ignorant of both the history and of the strategic realities. and
Yeah, David,
technological realities.
yeah, David, I'm going to go to you in one specific instance. I'm going to talk about Tucker Carlson real quick. We have rightly said that we looked at Tucker Carlson at some point in the past 10 years as a good conservative voice, and he claimed to be a Christian. I don't know what kind of a Christian he is, but he claims to be. But recently, and then let's say the past 2 years, ever since he went on his own network, he's had people like the priest from Bethlehem, Munther Isaac, who was interviewed about the what's going on in Gaza. He interviewed the Prime Minister of Qatar. He interviewed Daryl Cooper, a revisionist historian, and all these have one thing in common. He is very critical of the Jewish people, very critical of Israel, and he doesn't like what they do. He doesn't want to be called an anti-Semite because it's different. He says, well, he gives his own definition. But anyway, in all these interviews, he never talked about Qatar, human right violation, women's rights, persecution of Christians, persecution of other minorities. Never talked about what's going on in Gaza with Christians and the attack of Hamas on Jews and Christians. Never talked about, to Daryl Cooper, never talked about some of the errors, blatant errors that he made regarding Israel and regarding America. So, what is wrong with him now going after senators that are supportive of Israel? I mean, it is almost like he says he's not obsessed, but I just gave you three or four examples of these
Yep.
are kind of the shows that he brings out. I mean, it's not even to be too critical. Is that I used to like Tucker Carlson, what he had to say, and I agree with him on domestic policies, closing the border, and being more in tune with the American economy, unlike the globalists that we've had in the presidency. But what has happened in your opinion to him in switching over to a more aggressive anti-Jewish ideas?
Well, let me say this, agreeing with Jacob. I have not voted for a Bush, not one of them. Just, and I'll get to your question, but it's like
How does that? Did I say
I,
Bush?
I just never believed that you could democratize the Middle East Muslims. You just can't. It's democracy is for a Judeo-Christian thing, and that's where Bush failed, thinking that he could democratize Muslims and Islam. It just doesn't work. But anyway, Marco, I think this is something that I've wrote two articles on. It's the rising anti-Semitism. First, Tucker Carlson is smart enough to know that being labeled an anti-Semite would hurt his ratings. So he's being careful about dancing around that. But, when you keep being obsessed with Israel, like he says he's not obsessed, but when you keep bringing up the same problems over and over and pointing them out elsewhere, you're starting to down that road. And we're seeing rising, like if you go through the internet and go through X, you're seeing everywhere people are believing that the elders of Zion are back in power, and that well, you'll Google elder of Zions if you don't know who that is.
That's a crazy one. That's crazy.
Yeah. And they're blaming the Jews for everything. They just they're in control of our government, and the terrible things that they think about our government. That Trump is pro-Israel, but he is not controlled by them, but he does know that they are the only Democrat elected country in the Middle East. And they're our friends, and he does understand that Israel is fighting this war not only to save their nation, but to save America, because we are a great Satan to Iran and a lot of these countries who he interviews their leaders, which I don't care about him interviewing leaders from other places. That's his job. But it's coming now at the expense of rising distaste for our government and Israel. He's trying to walk this fine line of saying, "Hey, we don't want to be involved in any war and everything," but it's an impossibility when you have a world that's as unstable as it is,
Yeah.
and a lot of it is centered around oil and money, there's going to be problems. And Matthew 24 and 25 says the earthquakes are going to keep coming, the birth pangs are going to keep coming. And so we're going to see the rising spiritual hatred of Israel just get worse along with it. And also falling on those heels is the hatred of Christians.
Yeah, absolutely. Jacob, real quick on Tucker Carlson. I mean, he interviews the Prime Minister of Qatar, and he doesn't even ask him anything related to,
No,
or he doesn't even bring
he's
up
gone the
Christian
way
persecution.
he's gone the way of Candace Owen and James Buchanan.
Yeah,
What's Yep, yeah,
yeah,
Buchanan.
James Buchanan.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
gone the way of those guys.
is
He
this going to divide the conservative libertarian right wing? I mean, I wouldn't call them all conservatives.
noted they all were anti-Israel. They've
Yeah,
all been anti-Semitic.
it's
Not to
interesting.
mention incipiently anti-Semitic for sure.
Yeah, is this going to break it up to a certain degree of another, or at least fracture it
It is fracturing the Republican Party.
long term?
Uh, well, I don't know to what degree that governed Murdoch getting rid of him from Fox. Okay.
Hmm.
I don't know that he was breaking with the popular values that were represented by most people on Fox. I don't know. But I don't think he has as much enough influence alone to do that. Neither does Candace Owen. Her popularity has disintegrated, if you notice. She's not really getting the kind of influence or respect she once got among conservatives. And I don't think Tucker Carlson has done himself any good either.
Yeah,
Short,
no, especially
longer
yeah,
term, we shall see.
yeah.
But
I'm gonna
he's
say,
also
Jacob,
smart enough to not make the all-out mistakes that Candace Owens and some of these other people are doing.
That interview with Ted Cruz he's not going to recover from that easily in the thinking of
Yeah.
real conservatives.
no,
And
no,
he
that
never
was
did a good job with Putin either, Jacob.
No, he did not. He did
yeah.
not.
Jacob, I'm going to stay with
Honestly,
you.
Bill O'Reilly. Both times Bill O'Reilly interviewed Barack Obama, he was very weak.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct. A lot of these Fox guys were like that. Jacob, I'm gonna final subject. The British House of Commons approved radical measures for abortion up to birth in the UK. This is NC 1 and also NC 20. These are the amendments that are being made. They were voted on and it was passed 379 to 137. It wasn't even close. So basically, the government's policy is that you could basically murder a baby up to birth, basically infanticide, and it will not be prosecuted. It will not be illegal to do that, and they decriminalize it. So this is abortion up to birth amendment, which
Yeah.
the people don't even want this, but it was passed to the House of Commons. You mentioned it was going to be voted on today as
Yeah.
well.
Oh, no, that's the assisted suicide today.
Oh,
But,
that's the other. Okay.
but the two are concurrent. The two are
Yes.
concurrent.
Yes.
Concurrent legislation before the Commons. Hillary Clinton wanted that in the United States. She said she advocated abortion right up to birth, right up to the
Yeah.
time of.
Yes.
Okay. Bill Clinton twice vetoed, and as did Barack Obama, supported partial birth abortion, even though many pro-abortion people were against it. Even
Yeah.
though
Didn't even want
pro-abortion
it.
people, Bill Clinton didn't care, Barack Obama didn't care, and Hillary Clinton wanted to take it further. Well, they just didn't have the political leverage to do it in the United States they wanted to. But in Great Britain, they're trying to set the precedent. Again,
Yeah.
the party, which is just godless. But something else, they're saying that there is no obstetric or gynecological consent required for the procedure.
Yeah. No consultation needed.
No consultation. No, it's just an elective procedure of a baby they know can survive without an
Yep.
incubator. We're not even talking about a premature baby. We're talking about that you could C-section the kid and it'll be perfectly normal. It's just murder. It is just the legalization of infanticide of the kind that Hillary Clinton, the murderess, wants. I consider her to be a murderess in terms of what she advocated, at least. And it's happening, but it's happening together with this assisted suicide bill in Britain. Lead Better, I think it's called. There is a demonic power on back of it. there is a demonic power on back of it. And the Labor Party, I'm not campaigning for the Tories, but the Labor Party is absolutely demonically controlled.
The whole
David,
world
what
is
do you think?
building more and more altars to Molech.
Yes.
That's all this is. This is Molech worship. Both of those bills to baby killing as well as killing the people, fully formed people. This is God of death is being worshipped. Sorry,
It's
Mark.
amazing that even though the people didn't want it, Jacob, the people didn't. I mean, the
Oh,
polls
it's
show that
not
they
being
don't
done
want
with
it.
democratic consent.
Right.
We would absolutely urge our people in Great Britain to please go online, Google, contact your MP, member of parliament, and send a protest over NC1 and NC20. I've already been objecting, of course, but please, Christians need to pray and take a stand. We may not be able to stop it, but we're still called to be salt and light.
That's right. That's right. And just to see, I mean, these are the two, Tonia Antoniazzi and Stella Creasy were the
They're
ones
going
who
to be
were
very,
introduced.
you know, I'd like to see the photos of them when they're in hell because they're going, unless they repent, they're going to hell and they will spend eternity in the lake of fire as Moloch worshiping baby murderesses.
Yeah, 1,000 medical professionals called the MPs and said, you have to oppose this. You can't go along with
A
this. This is
thousand,
1,000. Yeah, because
thousand
obviously
physicians are saying, don't do this.
don't do this because it actually will accelerate the idea of gender selective abortion. It'll accelerate gender selective abortion. It will
Yep.
also, which is pretty prevalent in Islam, males over females, and it would also increase the fact that you don't need to go see a doctor anymore for it. There's no consultation needed. You could
That is
just do it.
correct.
And there
Look,
is a doctor, Carolyn Johnson, who is trying to pass Amendment NC 106, which actually requires a consultation. Even if you're thinking about doing it, you need to go see a professional, a doctor. These two women are blocking that NC 106, and they don't want it. Now,
look
why
at
would
them.
I
They're
don't
daughters of
understand.
hell. They're daughters of Satan. They're going to the lake of fire. How will they not go to the lake of fire?
Yeah. Unfortunately, that NC 106 has been tabled at this point, and that would reinstate an in-person consultation. So they were trying to say, well, they could just do it online. They can fill out a form, and that would be a consultation. But Dr. Carolyn Johnson said, no, insisted. It has to be an
When
in-person
they know in
consultation.
late gestation that a baby can recognize its parents' voices
Yeah.
prenatally, how can you justify this murder?
Yeah.
Because your
I have no
conscience
words for
has
it.
been turned over to evil, Jacob. It's the way the whole world is going. And these politicians that are building these altars, they know that it will, they know that people will use them. Like, oh, grandpa, no, it's not about the money, but it's for you to be comfortable. You can see people killing their parents and everything
Yes.
through medical suicide to get the money.
Well, this picture kind of sums it up. It's about 4,000 pounds for one cycle of chemotherapy. One cycle of chemotherapy, about 4,000 pounds, about 183 pounds, so close to 200 pounds for assisted suicide. I think that people will know exactly what people will choose when it comes to that. But it's going to happen to Jacob. When did it pass in the UK? I know here in 73. In the UK was earlier than that when abortion on demand was.
That's the problem. It began with homosexuality. That was first legalized in Britain, and that set the precedent for it in the United States.
Right.
Abortion the same. It was first legalized in Britain, and that set the a kind of juridical precedent for it to be adopted in the United States. We've had terrible Supreme Court justices, including that wicked woman who's now dead, Sandra Day O'Connor, appointed by Reagan, who would cite European
Law.
juridical decisions
Yeah.
in guiding American Supreme Court decisions. That's how wicked that terrible Republican Reagan woman was. And she wasn't the only one.
Yeah. Isn't that something?
Once it's said,
Yeah.
there is a legislative and a juridical
Right.
precedent that can influence the United States. And
Yeah.
that's
That's
what
what they
they're going
want.
for. Hillary
That's
couldn't do it, but the British can.
Yeah, and I don't think, well, like you said, Jacob, urge believers, urge even those that, you may know people that are not believers, but they don't want this. And the polls show that a lot of Brits don't want this, to urge to call it. It's not too late, but we need to pray. And of course, Starmer is very well in line with that. What about the issue, Jacob, with the Canadian hospital slowly killing Mr. Roger Foley because he's disabled. He's not able to eat by himself or for himself. And under the MAID, MAID, he is going to be starved, basically starved, a disabled man. And there's not a whole lot they can do because under the state sanctioned, basically killing. It's disgusting. But
He
this,
never signed the consent form, did he?
no, nope.
He
It'll
never
save us
signed the.
money is what the medical profession is looking at.
Yeah.
People use 90% of their medical benefits in the last 3 to 5 years of their life. So, hey, kill them 3 years early. Save
I
money.
always said that the generation responsible for Roe v. Wade and the use of abortion as a form of birth control is going to reap what it sowed with
Yeah.
euthanasia. It is a repercussion of their own sin.
Yeah, and people can go to maybe we'll post it. I'll probably put it on the chat if you guys can post it. A petition regarding Roger
Yes,
Foley,
we should
especially in
post.
Canada,
Can we
please.
get it off to Moriel's website to post it?
Yeah,
And
we'll put it on. We'll put it on the chat now. Yeah, we'll put it on the chat now. And we'll put it on our media page afterwards. But yeah, people can go on this. Let me put it on here. I'll send it to you, Jay and Davey. You guys can, but especially Canadian believers that can go on and sign that. And I would urge them to do the same thing as Jacob's called for. Call the MPs and let them know how you're not for NC1 and NC20. That you're also not for this made MAID in Canada as well, which Canada has become, unfortunately, has become very radicalized, except maybe on certain provinces are not. And that's been the big battle in Canada. We'll get into that.
Fear of God. Well, they
Yeah,
will fear when they're standing in front of him.
yeah,
Lord have mercy on the rest of us. They've lost
that's right.
the fear of God as well as their common sense.
Yeah. And it's such a weak church at the moment, Jake. I don't know if they can turn the tide at the moment. There's not enough salt and light to really
No.
turn the tide. So we have to pray. We have to ask, we have to beg heaven and ask the Lord for his mercy. When it comes to things like this, the murder and the disposal of God's image on the earth, human beings,
For
the
the sake of
babies.
the elect.
That's right. Amen. Amen.
I
So,
always remember when the left were getting this kind of power, when the left first began, there were interim periods of respite, but with Mr. Harper, but when the left were beginning to get this kind of a grip in Canada, John Arnott and other false teachers had people on the floor in Toronto laughing.
hmm,
Toronto laughing, counterfeit revival happened, and they were laughing. They were laughing. The only one who had something to laugh about was Satan. Look at what has
hmm,
happened to this country since.
yeah,
Remember, Clinton had 5,000 pastors
Yes.
in front of him at up there in Willow Creek, and not one pastor asked him, "Why don't you?"
Yep.
Not one stood up and asked him, "Why are you allowing for partial?"
5,000 worthless hirelings.
yeah.
Some of whom you and I know, David.
Yeah,
Yep.
some Calvary Chapel pastors were there.
Yep.
Yep.
Bill Hybels and not. I mean, why would they want Bill Clinton to be up there? But anyway, they have worse
It's
things.
about leadership.
Yeah.
It's about, yeah.
Well, it's it will be
Why
clowns.
would a Christian pastor
Yeah.
go to a seminar with a featured speaker on leadership is somebody who used the White House Oval Office as a boudoir to do something sexually perverted. I don't want to say what it was, with an emotionally troubled young woman the age of his daughter. That was he's a sexual deviant. What he did
Yeah.
was not even natural.
Still is, and yet he's considered to be the funny thing. He's considered to be a great president by many. He considered to be a great president. Oh, the Clinton years, the Clinton years. Those were
Yeah, yeah. Fasten
They
your
forgot
chocolate.
about
You
Newt
don't have
Gingrich
to go ahead
balancing the
and
budget. That's
yeah,
why.
yeah.
Uh,
All right. Well, send in your questions. Jacob's got answers to your questions, and he's going to use God's word to explain these things to us. So please send your questions on Rumble. We will go on backstage in just a few minutes. We won't be on YouTube or Facebook Live for obvious reasons, but thank you for watching, catching up. We're going to backstage. God bless you guys. We'll see you in just a few minutes.